Welcome to the Rosa Talks Ball podcast with me, Rosa Simpkin.
They said nobody cared about women's rugby, but guess what? We out here. We out here, fam. We're going nowhere. And straight down the ground, that is divine from Cross. Kate Cross on so many occasions has made a name for herself with the ball for England. Today at Bristol, it's with the back.
Oh, and the tune is through here, and the tune for England! Oh, yes! What a goal!
Hello and welcome back to the Rosa Talks Ball podcast with me, Rosa Simpkin. Continuing on from Sunday's podcast, I've got something special coming your way today. Tomorrow marks the start of the women's regional cricket season, so what better way to mark the occasion than part 2 of my regional preview podcast. Last time out, in part 1, I spoke to Katie George of the Central Sparks, Fee Morris of Thunder, Kelly Castle of Sunrisers and Chloe Hill of the South East Stars. You can find that episode on either Spotify or YouTube, so where you are listening right now. This week, in the second part, we have a spin bowling quartet, by complete coincidence on my part, with all-rounder Marie Kelly of the Blaze, bowler Katie Levick of the Northern Diamonds, bowler Sophia Smale of Western Storm and all-rounder Nancy Harman of the Southern Vipers. We spoke all things the 2024 season, from their predictions, the pre-season preparations, hopes for the season, and much, much more. As I'm sure you can imagine, with 4 interviews this week, it's a long one. So as always, there are timestamps in the description to help guide you through the episode. But as ever, if you have the time, please do join me, Marie, Katie, Nancy and Sophia as we discuss all things women's cricket. Now then, before we get started, if you have any queries, you can contact me on contactrosatalksball@gmail.com. On social media, you can find me through the @rosatalksball. And please do check out my website, rosatalksball.wordpress.com, for all the latest word on women's sport. As always, all of these details are in the description. So then, let's get started. I'm delighted to welcome Marie Kelly of The Blaze to the podcast. Thank you for coming on, Marie.
Thanks for having me.
First and foremost, what made you pick up a bat and ball for the first time?
I actually used to play tennis, and I've got a twin sister, so we played together, and we played a match against Trevor Penny's daughter. And I didn't know who I doubt you know who Trevor Penny is. He was an ex-international, pretty well known around sort of cricketing circles back then. And my dad kind of knew who he was and just got talking to him. And Trevor just told him about Earlswood Cricket Club, so his kids were playing there at the time, which is a local cricket club in Solihull/Shirley. And he said, if the girls are good at tennis, why don't they try cricket? So we went down and tried it and never looked back.
And then a bit of a jump. When did you think I can make a career out of this?
Not until about 6 months before they announced that women's pro contracts were coming in. Even up until the point where I was at university, there was still only the England women that were contracted. So I think there was only 18 women contracted in the whole of England. And I think even then the contracts weren't that lucrative for most of the players. So yeah, even when I was sort of 19, 20, it just wasn't an option. So then, yeah, we heard rumours of the game changing and some pro contracts being offered. And then even then it was only 5 contracts being offered, wasn't it? So I wasn't really sure even then if that would be me or if they'd be picking sort of younger players. So yeah, up until about 4 months of that conversation, I think that was when I was like, oh, actually, this might still happen in kind of my era of playing cricket.
That transitions quite nicely into how was the transition into the regional game for you personally?
Yeah, so it was quite probably a natural transition then, I guess, in that those of us that kind of been around the circuit for years, have been playing county cricket for years, people sort of my age tended to be the first girls on the contracts, which was quite pleasing to see that those kind of girls of that standard and those that have put in kind of all those hours and played to a decent standard of county cricket, we were kind of the ones that were rewarded with those contracts. And then yeah, in that first year, we were kind of the players that were doing well as well. So I think that transitioned quite nicely, in that we felt, I don't know, obviously speaking for everyone else, but myself, I felt like the game recognised those players and rewarded us well. And then we kind of got that back as well and rewarded the game by putting in some good performances, which then led to the standard increasing and then more and more pro contracts being offered, which takes us to today.
Jumping aside from that, how do you keep yourself motivated when the season ends and there's no cricket to play? Obviously, I know that there is the potential of, I think you went to Australia to play club cricket.
Yeah.
But before that point, how do you keep yourself motivated?
Well, I think especially as batters, there's a lot that goes wrong in cricket. It's not a very positive sport to be in a lot of the time. So I think most batters will always have something that they want to work on. That obviously you get out more times than you don't. So there'll always be something that you work on. And a lot of the times over winter, you kind of sit down with your coaches, you kind of review the footage from summer, and you build a plan of how you want to get better. And that's what motivates you throughout the winter, having a bit of a plan, small goals and then kind of bigger long-term goals. And then, yeah, just working our way through it. And like you say, some of us break that up by going abroad, because sometimes it could be a technical thing or it could be something that you just want to work on in games. So yeah, it's just individual really. But for me, I like splitting up the winter and having a bit of time away, in Australia or somewhere else that's nice and hot, and then come back here and work on a few technical bits as well.
So you made all of the domestic finals last season. You made the 100 final with Northern Superchargers, and then the Charlotte Edwards Cup and Rachel Hayer Flint Trophy, which is an absolute tongue twister, can I say, with the Blaze. And you were quite unlucky in those finals. What have you learned from those experiences?
I think the thing I've learned is having experience in the finals, and that experience on the day just really helps you get over the line. I don't think there was that much in it from a skills point of view from either of those teams. Like there wasn't a sure winner on each of the days, but from the teams that lost and my team, unfortunately, was on that side for quite a few of them. Each time it was kind of a new experience for that team, and sometimes you just need more and more players or a team that has just done it before, and it just helps you get over the line. And then sometimes the contest is just really good, and you hold your hands up and say they were the better team today. But yeah, I think if we'd have got over the line in the Blaze and the Charlotte Edwards T20 Cup, then maybe that might have helped us just have that kind of finishing experience and be able to get over the line in the Rachel Hayer Flint Trophy too. But yeah, one of those.
Last season domestically, you scored 530 runs, which is a very nice tally. You took a few wickets, but it's important I point out you weren't throwing the ball much, even though this still blows my mind. You can bowl with both of your arms. Do you want to speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, it started off as a bit of fun, really. Just a bit of like I love the game, love kind of playing, love practicing. So it just started off as a bit of fun. I do coaching as well, so I thought it might be quite a useful skill from a coaching point of view. And I was just playing around with different variations with like my boyfriend, who's also my coach as well, Tom. And I just couldn't bowl leg spin from my right hand at all. I was trying because I normally bowl off spin. I was like trying a few like flickers and trying to see if I could get the ball to turn away from the batter, and I just honestly just struggled so much with it. And we were just joking around with the left arm, and it just felt way more natural than a leg spin with my right arm would. And then yeah, I think it was kind of around the lockdown time where we literally had nothing else to do. So that gave just plenty of time to have a bit of boredom and a bit of fun in the garden, turned into some more serious training about it, and then turned into playing matches and trying to do it then as well. So yeah, I'd love to bowl more, but I've been in teams that have just got such good bowlers and spinners, so it's quite hard to find a place to be able to do that. But that's obviously a good problem to have.
Do you have one which you go to in games to use consistently, or do you play around with both?
Yeah, so the idea is to play around with both. Obviously, my right arm off spin is the main skill with it. And to be honest, I'm still quite new at that, so I'm still learning in games how to bowl that well and how to bowl it under pressure. And the standard of women's cricket each year, like the standard of batting, in particular, I think is getting really, really good. So that tests you year on year, just when you think you're getting the hang of it. new skills come into play. So yeah, the left hand is definitely more of a kind of a variation. It's a little bit slower than the right, turns a bit more. So yeah, it's more of a variation. And then I'd say that my stock is the right arm. But yeah, still practice it here and there, but I'm just trying to get the right arm a bit more consistent at the minute.
Now, what are your personal goals for your 2024 season with the Blaze and then further afield?
Yeah, so with the Blaze, it would just be just trying to put a few more match-winning performances in. Like as a batter, there's nothing that kind of gives you a bit more joy than just winning the game, whether that is in the form of 100, like sort of 75 not out, sort of a big innings that takes the game away from the opposition. I felt I was close on a couple of occasions last year and just got out kind of in the 50 and 60. And I personally want to just score bigger totals for the team and give us a better platform to start the innings and stuff. So yeah, that's probably a personal goal from the 50 over. And then the T20, I didn't feel like I had that good a year last year. Whereas the previous year at Lightning, I was really aggressive and just felt like, yeah, I could hit the ball anywhere I wanted to. And I want to get kind of that confidence back and just, yeah, take that form ready into the 100 again this year.
And then building on heading into next season, what has your winter training looked like and how are you preparing for the coming season as a team unit?
Yeah, so my winter's probably been a little bit backwards in terms of went out to play in Australia first, but then we had our team tour in February, so it kind of had to work that way. But it's just great to get out on grass. And the benefit of being in Australia is you can work on your technical stuff in the week and then I can put it into practice straight away in the games. And that's where I felt I had a few technical things I wanted to shift, but I didn't feel like I needed sort of 4 months of technical work before you play a game. So that was really cool in us to work on stuff in the week and then try it out in games. And if something didn't work, then it didn't matter. But then if it did, you can see kind of straight away and get that instant feedback whether things feel good or not. So yeah, that was my kind of first block of the winter, was a few technical changes to my batting, just try and get increased power and a bit more control. Similar with the ball, a few technical tweaks here and there. And then when we come back after Christmas, it was a lot more kind of scenario based, where it's bat v ball, looking at more of the tactical side of it and reviewing any kind of more technical elements. And then it was tour, which we had a good tour, and to Abu Dhabi, which is our first tour as the Blaze. So that was quite good to get the team together. And then we're just waiting to go outside now. So we got last week indoors before we head out at Lady Bay, and then a few more scenarios in the nets, a few practice games, and then the season will be here.
Kind of building on that a little bit, what does your setup at the Blaze currently look like? How is your access to facilities, coaches, and where do you train predominantly?
Yeah, so we're at Trentbridge 4 times a week. I think over the winter, one of those days was at Loughborough or Derby, just so it gives the boys a bit more space in the hall as well. So we're trying to share. There's 2 halls at Trentbridge on either side of the centre. So there's about 4 lanes in each. So yeah, we're trying to share that with the boys and work around them and then work around us as well. So yeah, we're in sort of 4 days a week at Trentbridge or Loughborough. And then a bit of fitness and gym, some running sessions, fielding. We've done fielding outside the whole time. So we're quite keen to kind of stay outdoors as much as possible, as obviously winters indoors in the dark can get quite depressing sometimes. So we really like kind of just being out on the grass, whether we're just doing running sessions, sort of high catching, even with gloves on and stuff, but at least you're still kind of tracking the ball and getting your fielding, getting your throwing in. So yeah, that's been really fun. Access to facilities is great. We love training at Trentbridge, like having our own sort of gym and space. We can work sort of more normal hours now, like more similar hours to what we'd have or what we'd expect as pros. And then they're really good to us, and we've got a gym membership at David Lloyd in West Bridgford as well, so that's really cool in terms of recovery. We can get in kind of the sauna and the ice bath and things, which just really helps you kind of give it your all then at cricket. The previous day means you can go kind of a bit harder in the gym, knowing that you can spend a bit longer in recovery at the club as well. So yeah, that's kind of what it would look like.
Moving on to some predictions.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, obviously you'll want to be up there yourself, but who are you backing as top run scorer for the Blaze?
For the Blaze, oh, good question. That's a really tough question because we've got a lot of good batters. I would say, obviously, if we can have Tammy and Nat as much as possible, then my money would always be on those two. Nat is the absolute goat, and then Tammy's just consistent as well, isn't she? She's a class act. And then in terms of our non-England players, I'd say Sarah Bryce has been looking really good at the minute. Ella Claridge was in some great form on tour, so looking forward to see how she goes. And yeah, and then Catherine obviously has just been in the IPL as well. So there's so many, I think there's so many of us that could be the ones to kind of take it this year. So yeah, hopefully, there's a few names in there that will all be in the runs this year.
On to wicket taker. Obviously, you can name a few.
Yeah, I'd say Grace Ballinger's probably been shaping up really nicely. She's got some really good control now and some skills on show, being able to bring the ball both in and away from the batter. So she's been giving me a few headaches in the nets. And then, yeah, I'd say probably Josie Groves, from a spin point of view. She's been bowling pretty well. She's gone out to Sri Lanka with the England under-19s. We recently heard she's captaining the side as well. So that's pretty cool from her. Hopefully she'll take a lot of confidence from that and bring it into our season with the ball. Yeah, she's been turning it pretty well. Yeah, and really worked on her technique. So yeah, hoping to see her in the wickets this year.
And then a potential breakthrough star, someone who maybe hasn't been at the top of people's list last season, but you think genuinely could make a real impact this year.
Yeah, so for me, that's probably Ella Claridge. She's like pretty quiet off the pitch as well, so she's not necessarily kind of the loudest in the group, but she's just a solid player. Kind of been under the radar a bit as Sarah's our kind of number one keeper. But I think there'll be a few opportunities this year for Ella in there as well, and she performed really well on tour. And I think she's playing for the USA as well at the minute, and done pretty well out there. So she's in some great form. I think she'll fly under the radar, but I think she'll be really successful for us.
And then looking at a potential all-round player of the season. Again, obviously you could name a few because that's quite a big question.
Yeah, we have quite a lot of all-rounders actually. I think Catherine Bryce is one of our main all-rounders, obviously apart from Nat, who's the GOAT of all-rounders. But if we're presuming if she's not playing, yeah, Catherine's a great all-rounder for us with both bat and ball. Stands up when she needs to. But I would also say, I think we're getting Nadine de Klerk back. So she was such an integral part of our team last year. But she didn't have the best season with the bat. She'd say that herself. So I think, yeah, if she performs with the bat like we know she can as well, like that would be such a great addition from an all-rounder perspective as well. She's got the skills there. She's another one that's just been in the IPL as well, so she brings some great strength to our team and another great all-rounder role.
And then the question which everyone is asking, can Vipers' dominance be smashed? Will we see different names on the trophies come the end of this season?
It has to, doesn't it? At some point, one of us wants it. We really thought we were the team to do it last year. We were full of confidence about it. And that, I think, like I said, it just showed their experience on finals to kind of hold their nerve a little bit. They're without Anya this year, so that could be interesting. Few of the results go our way, and hopefully we just need them to not get to a final, because I think once they're in the finals, they've just got such good experience over a lot of teams. So hopefully if we can even just not let them get a sniff of even getting into the finals, then that'd be great.
Team you'll be keeping an eye on as potential to come out on top of Vipers?
Oh, that's a good question. I think Stars have underperformed with the team that they've got. I think they've got some really skilled players, but just haven't quite kind of put it all together. But I always think that they've got kind of the makings of a great team. But just haven't quite kind of got over the line. And I think Sunrisers are getting there. I think they're really improving, and they put in some really good performances last year. So that's pretty pleasing to see, like a team improve like that. But I'm not sure I'd be putting my money on for a full finals win, but I think they've definitely improved.
And then a player from another region you think will stand out in the Charlotte Edwards Cup, so the T20 stuff, and then the Rachel Hale Flynn Trophy.
Oh, good question. I'll go in the Rachel Hayhoe Flint. I was really impressed with Ariana Douse last year from Sunrisers. She got 100 against us. Yeah, and I just thought she played really well. Really strong shots for such a kind of a young player. Well, not necessarily young, but like not as experienced player. So yeah, I thought she shaped up really well. And then in terms of the Charlotte Edwards Cup, one player that's tough to think of. One player that you think will stand out. Is that the
You
question?
can name a few. Yeah, you can name a few if you want.
Can I say my own teammates? It have to be someone else.
You can say your own teammate, but it'd be good to have someone from another region as well.
Okay. I think from our own team, I think Kirsty Gordon with the balls always like I would always like back her, especially in T20 cricket to kind of get you a wicket. So yeah, I'd be watching her, and then I think Freya Kemp potentially from Vipers. I think now that she's kind of getting over her injury as well. I've had a bit of a look at the England A scores, and she's in the runs there, and she just looks pretty clear on her plans and stuff. So yeah, and she's just constantly striking at quite a high strike rate, isn't she? So yeah, she's probably someone that might go under the radar with the bat, but I think actually scores quite a lot of helpful runs for the team.
And then moving on to a few quick questions about the game as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think needs to be done to help replicate the crowds of the 100 for everything else? Because we're seeing thousands and thousands of people coming and watching women's cricket, but not for the whole season.
Yeah, I think this move back to county cricket will help that. I think people want a more of a fan base that's closer to them, or a team that they can support that's a bit closer to them. So I think that will help. Then we can kind of have joint marketing with the men. I think that's been really, really key. As much as we kind of want women's cricket to be able to stand on its own 2 feet, I think we need to be realistic about the benefits it provides by having joint marketing and great relationships with the men's teams, because then you've got all of those kind of members and fans that want to support the women's teams equally as well. So yeah, I think that would be really key. And then I personally think, I'm not sure about kind of the legality of it, or what's right or what's not, but I just think we could really be using the 100 to advertise what's on next for England. That's not just women, but that's just towards the end of the competitions. I think it would be pretty cool to see some advertising up about what cricket is next. Did you like the 100? You will like the Vitality Blast or whatever competition is coming up. Then I think that would be pretty cool to see, and then people will know that that's not just it for cricket in England. Because yeah, like you say, the numbers are great. It's just trying to keep them. Well, I think notoriously it's been pretty hard, because you go from the 100 back to 50 over cricket after, which is it could be a different fan base. So yeah, there's a few challenges around the schedule with that, but I think first and foremost would be the joint advertising, I'd say.
Even something as simple as when people buy tickets for the 100, having a checkbox which says, are you willing to hear from the ECB or things, and sending out an email. Like there's some really simple things which could be done from an advertisement point of view.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then finally, regarding Project Darwin, if you could focus on one thing which you're very excited about and one thing which slightly worries you about the transition back into county cricket, what would they be?
Yeah, so the one thing that excites me is like I just said about kind of the joint marketing and the advertising. It means that hopefully kind of long term, each county or each women's team can generate their own revenue, which is the way that this game is going to move forward. We can't just rely on the ECB funding all the time. So that's kind of the main excitement for me, is that we've taken that step already. Yeah, and pretty hopeful about that, and we can see that's where we can really push women's cricket. So yeah, that's a great opportunity that I see. the one concern I have is probably more for the kind of logistics around those people that are kind of in between teams and where they sit. And I think that's something that will be looked at quite closely this year, in terms of, if you're not in the first team of a women's county tier 1, do you go to which tier 2 team do you go to? Because there could be 3 or 4 in that region that are all tier 2. Then what happens to those players that drop down? So there's a few teething areas that need to be worked out, but I think it's the right idea, it's the right concept. We just need to all kind of work together to work out what's best for everyone. But I do think it's the right way forward.
Thank you so much for coming on and talking all things to Blaze.
Thank you for having me. Really enjoyed the chat.
Super pleased to welcome Katie Levick to the podcast. Thank you so much for coming on, Katie.
No problem at all. Thanks for having me.
First and foremost, what made you pick up a bat and ball for the first time?
I think the same reason most kids do. I've got an older brother, and there wasn't much option other than to be his opponent at every sport going. So, got thrust into that pretty early on. And of all the sports that we played together, it was the one that I enjoyed the most. Just kicked on from there. And to say I was quite a shy kid, I always felt really welcomed at the cricket club. So it was easy just to keep playing all these years.
And then jumping forward a little bit, at what point did you think I can make a career out of this?
Make a career out of it was probably when I turned 30, like 2 years ago. It was like, obviously, probably one of the older people you'll have on the podcast talking about domestic cricket, but it wasn't professional. It wasn't even a hope of being professional. When I first started playing county cricket, even the England players weren't professional. So it was never really a career goal for me. It was just my hobby. I did it a weekend and I loved it. And it wasn't until the domestic structure came around of the regionals that I saw that girls started to make a career out of it. And even then, when we first got domestic contracts, I said I didn't want one because I had a full-time job, and it seemed like a backward step to take a punt at that stage of my career and give up a job I'd worked in for 10 years pretty much. So it wasn't until I turned 30 and then I was begging Danny Hazel, please give me a contract and I want to give this a go, that everything changed for me, and thankfully it did, and hopefully still got a few more years in the tank.
I mean, you've touched on it a lot there, but how was that transition into the regional game for you? Because obviously it was quite the jump from the traditional county structure into these 8 regions.
Yeah, it was such a weird time. Like I just always known the county structure and playing for Yorkshire, and then there was suddenly that uncertainty in our last year where we weren't sure what was going to come next. We just heard there was going to be an overhaul, and then that unfortunately coincided with COVID just changing the world, and we had really no idea what we were going to return to or what cricket was going to get played. So when we were told that the ECB were, sticking by this change and they were going to provide some professional cricket for us, it was really exciting, and I was just really wanted to be a part of it. Luckily, Danny picked me up in that first squad, and then we've not looked back since. But it's just such a world away, even in just 4 years, from what the county structure used to be.
And then stepping away from that slightly, how do you keep yourself motivated when the season reaches its conclusion and there is no cricket to be played?
That is a tough one. Off season is not something I've ever had to really deal with as an amateur, because you just went away in the winter and enjoyed your free time. But now it's an all year round thing. I think the motivation comes from chasing around these 20-year-olds around Beckett Park all winter when we're doing running sessions and seeing what they're up to. I feel like I'm at the same stage of my career as them quite often, because I'm also new to this game, so everything I'm doing for the first time is new to me as well. So the Diamonds team in particular is made up of quite a young squad, so it's quite motivating to challenge myself against those girls and try and stay top of my game.
Looking back at last season, you very narrowly missed out on a place in the Charlotte Edwards Cup, so the T20 finals day. You finished 1 point behind Thunder. So how, as one of the more experienced players within that group, do you help to bring the group back together after a disappointment like that?
Yeah, that whole campaign was a tough one. We got off to a flyer, and momentum's so key in tournaments that are that short. And I think we just sort of dropped the ball a bit and took our foot off the gas and sort of assumed that that we saw the mathematical equations. It was more difficult not to qualify than it was to qualify. So I think we just got a bit complacent and managed to fluff it up in epic style and not qualify. So it was a real humbling experience. I think we've not really experienced that as a region so far. It's an incredibly young dressing room, and we're lucky that Danny's a real level head at the top, and she often talks about mother cricket and how it can be a cruel mistress. And I think it was just a good learning experience for those girls early on that these things happen, and sometimes it's just not your day. And it was in our hands that we didn't qualify, so that was the main thing. It was a disappointment, but also it was something that you can build on, and you can correct that when it's your fault. So it was a tough experience, but that season we felt like was a learning experience really for the squad. It was their first full seasons of senior cricket, and there's no better place to learn than with disappointment really, because it certainly puts a fire in your belly to come back there.
On a much more positive note, you had a brilliant season last year with ball. You took 36 wickets for Diamonds across formats, which made you the second highest wicket taker overall. So what are your personal goals for the coming season with Diamonds and then further afield?
Yeah, I just love contributing to Diamonds and to victories, and taking wickets is still what motivates me even after all these years. Last year I went into the season a couple of wickets off 300 in my career, and so that was a nice milestone to get. But now I'm just firmly eyes on 400 and seeing how far we can go. I just want to just keep contributing to Diamonds victories, and the only way I can do that really is by taking wickets. So it's still a massive motivator for me, and I have done it for so many years now. I don't want to let it slip. I've got my own standards, and people expect that of me, and that's my role in the team. And I want to keep doing that for as long as possible.
And then moving on to a little bit about the team, what has your winter training looked like, and how are you preparing for the coming season as a side?
Yeah, it's been a good winter. It's been a long winter now. We're ready firmly for outdoors. We've had quite a big squad of us based at Headingley for the first time, whereas usually you're quite splintered. We've had a couple of girls go off to international duties. Like Holly Armitage, we've not seen much this winter because she's been in the England squads, and that's fantastic, and we're so pleased for her. And same with Bess Heath. A couple of the girls have been and played domestic seasons in Australia, which is just another thing that's been added to the regional structure, that we have these opportunities. But we've had a really good core base at Headingley. We've put a lot of hard work in, and we're seeing some good results. And then we've just been on a tour to Mumbai and landed back I think 2 days ago. I'm not sure what day it is. But that was a really brilliant experience. We spent a lot of the winter working on batting against spin and that sort of game management against spin. So to go out and do it in Mumbai, there was nothing really better to test us.
For sure, I think it's been really nice to see that all of the regions have gone on a tour of some kind this season, and it's the first time that has ever happened. So it's definitely really nice to see that development within the game.
Yeah, that's something that's still fresh to me, and I get still so excited about. I've not been on pre-season tours before, and last year we got a bit of a glimpse of it. We went to Desert Springs in Spain, just for a couple of days, which was such an important experience for our team. We think that's what really brought us closely together, being in those environments. And so to take that up a notch, to go to Mumbai for 10 days was an incredible cricketing experience, but an incredible life experience. And that's something that's going to bond that group of girls forever.
What do you think Diamonds need to do to help you reach that next level this coming season and make both of those finals?
I think a lot of the basics are already there. We've got a really good, solid platform of performers, and the younger girls that broke into the squad last year and were having their debut seasons have now got a full year of cricket under the belt. We've got 10 full-time professionals that have been able to dedicate themselves all winter to improving themselves. So I think we had a really good, strong core of players, and we've shown that with our previous history of finals and trophies. So I don't think we need to do too much different, really. We just need to back ourselves a bit more and have that belief now that we've got a year of playing under our belt. And so I think this winter has been a great one for girls to just really go away and focus on themselves and the basics, and hopefully it puts us in a good position to go back to where we want to be, which is competing for trophies.
And then you've touched on this, but what does your setup at Diamonds currently look like? How are your access to facilities, coaches, and where do you train most of the time?
I think we're really lucky at the Diamonds. We're a really stable region in that we train all of our time at Headingley. Now we're going into the season, we use Headingley and Wheatwood, which is an outground that Yorkshire men use. So we have exactly the same access to facilities that the men do at Yorkshire, and they've been really accommodating for us. We use the gym at Headingley. We just pretty much have exactly the same setup as the guys. We've got 2 full-time coaches on staff at the moment, hiring a third. We've got, all our science and medical team that we have our own dedicated one, but we also share the men's at Yorkshire. So I think we're a really fortunate region that we've been allowed to have a stable base and we know where we are all of the time. And I think that's really going to put us in a good place, to be honest. It allows girls to have stability off the pitch, which is really important.
Now moving on to some predictions. Looking ahead to the season, who do you think could be up there as Diamond's top run scorer?
Ooh, I mean, it's quite hard to ever look past Lauren Winfield Hill. Loz is just such a class act, has been for years, and I've been lucky I've played all my cricket with Loz. She just looks in such a good place, but we've got real competition in our batting lineup. We're not sure who will actually make it into the starting 11 because we've got such good young players coming through. We've got Emma Marlowe and Leah Dobson, Phoebe Turner. Like the first 2 have played in the 100, and so it shows the calibre of young players we've got coming through. Holly Armitage obviously has just got an England call up. She's had a fantastic winter in New Zealand. She's a real key part for us. Stair Callis. I could name everyone pretty much in our starting lineup, but I think it's just really good to have that strength and depth, and we've got competition from within our ranks that no one's place is guaranteed, so it is really going to be performance based, and I think that's an exciting place to be as a professional team.
It's definitely not a bad problem to have, to be able to name so many. And then jumping over to the other side of things, obviously I'm sure you'll be up there again, but top wicket taker.
I would love it to be me, but obviously I'd also like to see some real competition for wickets. I think I've been lucky that I might be the one that's picked up the wicket, but it's usually because of the hard work of someone else at the other end. So I think we saw really good glimpses from our opening bowler, Lizzie Scott, last year. She's a real asset, and I think she's going to be one for the future for sure. We've got a battle for our seam positions this year. We've got a lot of good seamers. We've signed Sophia Turner from Thunder. Like I said, Lizzie Scott and Jess Woolston opened our bowling last year and were fantastic. We've got Beth Langston due to come back, and to have Langers coming back into the fold is like having a whole new pro overseas or something coming in, because she's just such a top quality cricketer. So I think when she's back for us, she'll be a real threat. So again, I've been really political there and I've not really named one, but I think it's got some really good healthy competition in our bowling ranks, and we've had a really fun winter as a bowling unit.
And then you've touched on a lot of names there, but looking at breakthrough stars and then overall players of the season.
Yeah, like I said, I think Lizzie Scott, I think, such an exciting cricketer. I really love watching her bowl. I think she's also really handy with the bat, which you don't often get to see because our batters do the job for us so often. I think she's just being picked up in the 100 again. I hope she gets a bit more of a run at the Oval this year, because I think she's really exciting prospect. She's got some really good pace and moves the ball. So I think it could be a big season for Lizzie. She's in her first year as a professional as well, signed her first professional contract in October. So yeah, I think she's really one to watch. And Emma Marlowe I touched on, sort of got a breakthrough in our team as an off spinner and batting down the order, but seems to have really switched that. She's worked so hard in her batting, and I think she'll be challenging for that top 4 batting order, and she just looks a really good complete package at the moment. So I think, yeah, those 2 have got big seasons ahead for us.
And the question which I think everyone is asking, probably apart from them, can Vipers' dominance be smashed? Will we see a different name on the trophies at the end of this season?
I mean, I really hope so. It was nice that we knocked them off once, but it wasn't enough by any means. They've just been such a complete package, and Lottie seems to just be able to churn out victories no matter what team she's at. But I like to think last year showed the first real glimpses of it being a really open competition. There was no team that were the fall guy. Everyone was beating each other, and it went down to the last game of the season in the Hey-Ho Flint to see who was qualifying for that eliminator. So I think that showed how strong the regional setup has become now. So I think it really is anyone's game this year. It depends, I think, how your fixtures fall as to where availabilities fall with international players. I think it is really open. I think this could be the year. Everyone will be obviously desperate as well to try and get the name on that trophy, with it being the last one of the regional setup as we know it. So I think it's going to be a really exciting year, and I do expect some upsets.
I really do hope so. And then building on that, who is another team that you'll be keeping an eye on as potential dark horses to come and do much better than I guess people are expecting them to do?
I think we saw glimpses of Sunrise's potential last year. They've got a really good group of young players that probably at the beginning of the regional setup was just a bit too young and fresh to really compete at that standard, but they've got some quality coming through now. And pains me to say, but Thunder look really good. Again, I think they showed glimpses last year as well, especially qualifying for that T20 finals. They've got such an arsenal of seam bowlers that are really tricky, and players like Fee Morris, who had real breakthrough years last year, moving regions, Naomi Tani, Tara Norris. I think they recruited really well. So although they are the historical Yorkshire Lancashire rivals, I do think they'll be one to watch.
And then building on the other regions, a player that you'll be keeping an eye on in the Charlotte Edwards Cup and also the Rachel Hay Flynn Trophy.
Oh, good question. I don't tend to pay much attention to anyone outside of my own team. I think a Diamonds player will probably be one of the ones to break through. But yeah, I think there's a lot of players out there. The England A's have done really well at the moment in New Zealand. That's showing the strength and depth. I'm going to be really political and not be able to name one. But I think, yeah, it's just exciting to see. It'll probably be someone we're not even expecting to have a breakthrough yet, you know. There's so many players coming through now that I show my age and have no idea who they are, and have an absolute worldy season. So I think another youngster's probably going to break through on the scene and surprise us all. It'll probably be from Vipers because they seem to churn them out like a factory.
And then looking at the game in general, what do you think needs to be done to help replicate the crowds we're seeing in the hundreds and bring them into the regional game?
Yeah, I think the hundreds, obviously, it's been amazing for the women's game, and it's shown that there is a desire there for the audience. I think the restructure that we're going to see with teams aligning with the county is the natural next step that needed to happen. I think can be quite messy to explain who you play for and what that means, and people obviously don't have necessarily alliance to a team that's spread over a region that can be such as vast as ours. So I think the next big step is see who wins these bids, and see if they put their money where their mouth is and really back up that they're going to support the women's game. Because I think the double headers for the 100 and making it really simple that, you know, superchargers men and women are playing today, come and watch, is what's got an appetite, is what got the audience in. So I think over the last 4 years, the regional structure has really built the quality of cricket, and we're at a fantastic standard now. And now we just need people to come and see it. And I think that's going to be with real buy-in from the men's first class counties. That's the way we're going to do it.
I mean, you definitely touched on it there, but you've been part of an era where you've seen it all. You've seen the full transition. What do you hope to see the women's game gain from Project Darwin?
I think the first and foremost is fully professional squads. That's the natural next step that you need in order to have full healthy competition and just fairness across the board to allow these girls to dedicate their time. You can feel a bit of guilt, you know, being one of the ones that gets to train full time and seeing the girls making the sacrifices that I know all too well and have done throughout my career. So the fully professional squads is the main thing. But then I think it's, I touched on it earlier, it's not an issue that's necessarily affected us, but being based somewhere consistently, having a home base of these top class, first class facilities to train and to play in, and these stadiums is something that's really going to propel us forward. It'll just show that there's, you know, support and backing from the game when you're walking out to play at these first class venues. I think it shows you that you are professional and you're being taken serious. So I hope that from Project Darwin, we really see the buy-in from the men's first class counties and see that they value our product.
And then finally, you've spoken a lot there about the positives of Project Darwin. Is there anything which worries you slightly on the flip side about this transition back into the county game?
Yeah, obviously there's a lot of worries. I think at the moment, the main thing is just being up in the air, not knowing where the bids are going. That's quite unsettling for a team, and you don't know where your life could be at the end of this season. So that is quite tough going into a season, not knowing where you might need to live, not knowing where your job might be. So I think that is an unsettling thing. I think obviously there's going to be a period of a bit of getting used to and adjustments. People are going to have to move around the country. People are going to be unsettled, but ultimately it is a thing that needed to happen. Yes, it is another change, another restructure that might complicate things in the short term. I think in the long term, to get the buy-in from cricket fans, it makes logical sense. I think there's a lot more positives than negatives. Once we find out who's won the bids, I think it'll just be an exciting time to see where it goes next.
Thank you so much for coming on, Katie.
No worries at all.
I'm super pleased to welcome Nancy Harman of the Southern Vipers to the podcast. Thank you so much for coming on.
No worries at all.
First and foremost, what made you pick up a bat and ball for the first time?
The first time I played was I was about 9 at my primary school, and there was a before school cricket club. So it was literally just tennis ball, quick cricket bats, and I loved it. And I joined my local club after that. But yeah, that was my first experience.
And then making a bit of a jump, at what point did you think I can reach the top level of the game?
I mean, yeah, a huge jump, really. I mean, I played for fun and loved it during sort of secondary school, and then I went to uni and carried on playing to the highest level I could. But at that point, the only sort of paid stuff was the KSL. And I did engineering at uni because I thought, well, I love cricket, but I need to have a career. I need to do a degree that's going to get me a career. And it was only in my my third year of uni that the new pro setup started. And even then, I was only pay as you play. Didn't really know how that was going to go. So yeah, probably only really 2 or 3 years ago when I thought that, I could stick at it and try and get a pro contract.
And then building on that, you've mentioned it briefly there, but looking at the ECB transitioning away from county cricket and into the regional setup, do you think that was a very positive approach? Do you think it should have been approached slightly differently?
No, it was a really smart move, I think, in 2 ways. Firstly, obviously the contracts and having paid contracts. I think in retrospect, the pay as you play situation has become quite difficult, but I think that's probably due to the growth being quicker than even the ECB imagines. So kind of a good thing in a way. And I think as well, narrowing down to 8 regions was a really good move for the game, because I used to play for Sussex in Div 1 of the county championship, but there's girls that were playing in Div 3, Div 4 even, who are now at senior pro teams. So I just don't think that model necessarily allowed for A, talent development, and B, sort of talent ID. So yeah, narrowing down to 8 regions but having a more competitive league was definitely a really good thing for the game.
And then stepping away from that slightly, how do you keep yourself motivated when that season ends, last game of the season's been played, and there is no cricket?
Yeah, it's definitely a bit of the season's a bit of an emotional roller coaster, and I think it is sort of sad when you say bye to teammates, because some of them might go away. You're not going to see them until the next sort of March or whatever. A lot of our girls are in Australia this winter, so it certainly is a bit of an emotional time. But yeah, I think for me in the off season, I do some coaching. So I coach on the Vipers pathway as well as at some local schools. And yeah, I mean that first bit of the off season where we have some time off is a good time just to like get out on the bike and yeah, hopefully do a bit of hiking or go away somewhere. But yeah, to be honest, at that point you are knackered, and if anything, ready for a bit of routine. I'm a bit of a stickler for routine, so I quite like the winter training and sort of having the same thing to do Monday to Friday. So yeah, usually by the end of the season, ready for a bit of peace and quiet, or I am at least.
I think especially given how long the season is now, I mean, to think that it starts late April ends very late in September. It's pretty much never ending.
Yeah, it does. It does feel like that. I mean, in the same sense, the winter feels never ending as well. When you're stuck in the indoor school, that really does drag. We're all really excited to get outside now. But yeah, I mean, the season is getting longer every year, which is great.
And then looking forward to next season, what are your personal goals from a cricketing perspective with the Southern Vipers and then further afield?
So this season coming up, I want to have a bit more of a role with the ball. Yeah, not had a huge amount of opportunity to bowl last season, but I've been working really hard on that over winter, and I think I mean, leg spin's tricky, and it's certainly my skill level I'd like to think it's improved. But yeah, putting that into practice on the pitch is a big goal for me, and then also continuing the role I've had with the bat, especially in T20. I think sort of surprised myself last year with what I was able to do. So hopefully this year have a bit more confidence in trying to win some more games for the team. And as well as that, I want to be picked up in the wild card draft for the 100. Because again, I think that short format is a big part of my game, and obviously the opportunity to train and play with overseas and the best players in the country is really valuable.
I certainly feel the leg spin being a difficult thing because I've learnt it for the first time this winter, and Jesus Christ, it's it's something else. If you get it slightly wrong, you're going for six.
Yeah, that's literally what I say to people. The margin for error is very small. Seamers, I reckon they have a huge margin for error, but they tell me they don't. But yeah.
And then a slightly different point of view. Do you have any cricketing icks? Things which players or teammates do which make you just think absolutely not?
Oh, it's a good question. I'm sure there are some. It's probably a lot of things that I do that are a bit icky for some people, but yeah, I'm not a big kit thrower. I'm not a big kit thrower if I get out, and I think because I don't have 7 bats and 4 helmets, I don't tend to throw it. And then when people do, I always think, oh, if you're the one padding up and you're next to them and you're trying to pad up and get ready to bat, and they come in and chuck the helmet or something, it's not a good place to be. Maybe not an ick, but I mean, I get why people do it, but yeah, it's you never want to be the person sat next to that.
I definitely agree. It's when you're sat in the crowd. It's happened a few times at regional games I've been to, and you hear this massive thud in the changing rooms, and you think, oh, okay. And then thinking about the team as a whole, what has your winter training looked like, and how are you preparing for the coming season as a team unit?
We've had an interesting winter. We've not had everyone here, so for a lot of the winter, there's been about 8 or 9 of us training. And even then, there's only out of that, I think maybe 6 pros, maybe even less. And then pay as you play players. So yeah, quite a small group, which has meant we've got loads of one-on-one time. So it has its perks. Certainly excited to see the girls that have been away, and obviously we're just sort of following their progress anyway. And they've all been really successful. But yeah, quite a small group. We do like 4 days a week, quite long days. So we try and have sort of heavier days and then really light sort of off days. But yeah, we get our weekends, which is nice. Although most of us actually coach, so most of us coach on the pathway at the weekend. But yeah, we do technically get our weekends, and yeah, we do sort of a mixture of one-to-one stuff like skill development, and then we also do like competitive, not just scenarios, but we just do sort of different games. Might just set some rules on a game and yeah, try and have a bit of fun. I'm notoriously competitive in those, and anyone that knows me will know that I do lose my head sometimes. But I think it's important to have that competitive side, because I think one thing we really have always valued at the Vipers is doing stuff under pressure, and how much value there is in being able to execute your skills under pressure. Yeah, and this year we've had a new fielding coach come in, and we've done some really really good fielding stuff, and just worked on. Well, he's an absolute badger for the game, and he's watched. He's not been in women's cricket before, but he basically sits and watches old RHF games, and then invents what fielding drill we're going to do the next day. So we've done some funny ones, we've done some dangerous ones, we've done all sorts, but you're kind of limited with what you can do inside with fielding. But yeah, we've been really creative, and that's been fun.
And then you've mentioned a little bit there about your logistical setup, but how is your access to facilities, coaches? Where do you train most of the time?
Yeah, obviously a relevant question with Project Darwin. The countdown is on to regions finding out, but we've been really lucky for a number of years. Like Hampshire at the Utilita Bowl now have always supported us really well, and we get access to all the facilities there. So there's an indoor school, obviously gym there. Yeah, we can run on the pitch and stuff, and then going outside, we'll have access to the nets there as well. And yeah, it's a really nice sort of work environment. Like we really collaborate with the men, and we've got some staff that sit on the men and the women's side, so there's a bit of collaboration there as well. And we share the gym with them, and the lads are really great and have very much sort of welcomed us into what was their space previously. So yeah, I think that answers your question.
It does. It's been really interesting because I asked people similar questions last year, and with Project Darwin coming, it's interesting how many teams have really stepped up their game because they've gone, oh, if we want to keep this team, we actually need to put in an effort. But from what I can gather, Vipers have been at a pretty high level for a rather extended period, which is very good.
Yeah, I mean, I think probably somewhat helps the success of the Vipers, I think, has been having such a strong base. And it's no surprise really that when you've got a base to train at and it's good facilities and you've got good access, it helps you to become better players. So we've been really lucky, and well, yeah, lucky, and just Hampshire have been very very good with us.
And then finally looking at the logistical side of things, what are your goals as a team unit heading into this new season?
Yeah, we did the double last year, and we obviously want to do it again. I think we had a few conversations about this, and we're due to have sort of another chat as a team. But certainly as well, with Project Darwin coming in, we don't know what's going to happen, but we know that this is probably the last year that we're going to be the Southern Vipers as they are right now, whether that's from a name point of view or a location point of view. So I think it's been a brand and a team and a sort of legacy for quite a long time, and I think a lot of us are using that as a bit of motivation to give that sort of name one good last run out. I say this, and we'll probably be called the Southern Vipers next year, but it just, I think it's find any sort of motivation. But yeah, we want to do the double and we want to do it better. I mean, we left it pretty late in the RHF, and we ended up with some must-win games. And this year, hopefully, we'll just be at the top the whole time and really dominate even further. I mean, what else can you want?
I reckon you won't be the Southern Vipers next year, so I completely get that desire to kind of end that era with a high. And then looking at some predictions, who are you backing to really be in the runs for Vipers this season?
I think Ella McGacken's had a really good winter, and she did score. But she was our young player of the year last year, and she did score a lot of runs last year. But I think she's going to kick on even further, and she's highlighted some technical elements of her game. And having been here with her all winter, I can see the hard work she's put in, and at the moment she's looking really good. So certainly think batting at the top of the order as well. I think she's definitely got her eye on a lot of runs, but I don't want to jinx her.
Then looking at the flip side of things, who are you backing to really be in the wickets?
Yeah, we've got a really good bowling side. Obviously, Georgia Adams was leading wicket taker in the 100 and stuff last year, and I've no doubt that her and Lindsay Smith will continue to sort of bring that sort of experience from a spin point of view. But yeah, I think Ava Lee, who played a couple of games for us last year, so she's out with the England under-19s at the moment and is taking wickets out there. And I think she's she's got a really exciting season ahead of her. And she took some big wickets last year as well. Straight into the team and straight into getting Lauren Winfield Hill out, and she was on a good run of form as well. So even if she doesn't take lots of wickets, she's definitely going to take some good ones.
And then you've mentioned Ava there, but looking at potential breakthrough stars.
Not in terms of age necessarily, but Alice Monaghan, I think, has not necessarily made a mark for the Vipers yet. I think she's, and with such a strong squad, she's been somewhat of a fringe player at times. But she's definitely, well, she's worked really hard this winter, and her bowling action is looking better than ever. And I think, yeah, she's just got a bit more maturity and confidence in what she's doing. And I think she's got a really good opportunity this summer to make a mark with the ball and really sort of clinch that maybe opening bowler spot, or just being a really consistent bowler for us. And to be honest, she adds so much with the bat and with her fielding that the bowling's just sort of a cherry on top. So yeah.
And then looking at a player of the season, you can name a few because that's quite a broad category.
Yeah, well, I mean, Georgia Adams was outstanding in all the formats last year, and she's had a really good winter, and somehow gained more experience. She's captained the New South Wales Breakers, and obviously played in the Big Bash as well for the winning team. So she's just sort of carried on this winning streak. So yeah, I mean, she's obviously going to be a contender. But Lindsay Smith as well, like obviously just played again for England, got a call up and returned to that T20 side. So she's another one that is well in the running. And then I guess you got player of the season. There's a lot of candidates. I think as well, like, it could well be one of the young players. I mean, we've got we've got three Vipers at the England under-19 games at the moment, and maybe they could be a young player of the season. But yeah, they're all having success out there, and Abby Norgrove scoring runs, Averly's taking wickets, Mary Taylor looks like she's bowling just as well as she did last season when she was brilliant. So yeah, I couldn't call it, but
I've asked all of the other people I've interviewed the flip side of this, but can the Southern Vipers do the double again? Can that dominance be maintained?
I'm assuming all the other teams said yes, of course they can. No, they probably hate the thought of that. Yeah, I absolutely think so. I just think we've as players individually, we're all still getting better, and that can only make a team better. And like I said, we've now had England A call ups, and we've had Lindsay return to the England side, and we've got girls going out to England under-19 tours again. They're going to come back more experienced. I mean, and it's not just about England honours either. I mean, those of us that have been here over winter have worked hard, and we've had new coaches come in. I mean, we had a new, well, he worked with us a bit last year, but James Hibbard, our new assistant coach, did most of the winter programme, and been really good working with him. And like I said, new fielding coach in Brad Taylor. I'm actually really excited to see our fielding this summer, because I think we've actually improved a lot as a side, and as we know, like, fielding does win you games. So yeah, I hope we can maintain the dominance, but I'm sure all the other teams don't.
I mean, everyone thinks they're winning, so I think it's going to be very interesting. And then looking at the other teams, who is a team you'll be keeping an eye on as a potential dark horse to do quite well over the season?
I think you've got the obviously regular strong contenders, the Stars and the Diamonds, historically done really well. But I think the Sunrisers got on a really good run of form at the end of last season, and their new coach who came in, I think Andy Tennant, he sort of took over, and all of a sudden I think they had, they won quite a few games towards the end of the RHF. So if they can carry that on, then they could be in a good position, and certainly would be a bit of a dark horse. I think they've obviously not finished particularly high in the table, but they do have a talented squad that have grown and obviously gained experience over the last few years, and obviously they've signed Danae van Niekerk again, so she can be a game changer in any format. So yeah, they would be my call, but they're not going to beat us, obviously.
I like that anecdote at the end. I think they ended up finishing fourth in the 50 over stuff last year, which was that nuts final day where so many teams could have qualified, and then Sunrise has just appeared out of nowhere and rose up.
Yeah.
Pun not intended. And then a player from another region who you think will stand out in the T20 stuff, or players.
I mean, looking at the England A stuff and probably historic performance as well, like Rhiannon McDonald-Gay looks like a real good shout for that. I mean, every time she's sort of been given the ball at different points in the 100, and for the Stars as well, like, she's stepped up and obviously it's all a bit of sort of hearsay and gossip, isn't it? But I hear she's bowling quick, and that's good. And she can bat as well. So yeah, I think she will definitely have some success. I think who else otherwise? Yeah, no. Oh, I mean, if we can count England players, then Freya Kemp is going to have a great season because she absolutely tore apart the New Zealand bowling attack, and I have no doubt that she's going to do the same. And I genuinely just feel very lucky that she's on my team because bowling at her is not only scary for the ball coming back at you, but just so frustrating because she just, it's all right inside when you can't see how far the ball's gone, but when you can see how far she hits it outside, it can be quite demoralising. So yeah, I'm really glad that she's on my team. And I think as well, like obviously, like I said, Lindsay Smith's gone back to played another game for England in the T20s, and yeah, I think she could be really threatening in the CEC this year.
And then looking at the longer format and the 50 over stuff.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I mean, I feel like it's quite a lot of games and quite a long season, and someone can play a great knock and win a game, and they might be bottom of the sort of run scoring top 10 or whatever. But actually, they might have got their team to the final. So yeah, that's the beauty of 50 over cricket, isn't it? I mean, a knock of 30 runs off 90 balls could win a game and get you to the top of the table. So it's not necessarily about runs scored, but yeah, I think Holly Armitage, got an England call up and did score quite a few runs towards the back end of last season. Again, Diamonds, Lauren Winfield Hill. I mean, she scored so many runs last season. Particularly 50 over cricket, she can be quite threatening. And yeah, if the Blaze get Tammy Beaumont back, I mean, she's always good at the longer format. Those are all batters really, but it's hard to call in. It's hard to call with the bowlers. Yeah, I think it's anyone's shout really. And there's always going to be performances that go under the radar that win games and aren't necessarily credited with being top wicket taker or whatever.
And then looking at the game in general, what do you think needs to be done at a regional level or county level next year to replicate the crowds that we're seeing in the 100?
I think like the whole Project Darwin and the shift there is an important aspect of that is sort of the branding and the marketing. And I think in reality, it might be that some regions sort of lose a bit of a fan base before they build one up again. But it also could be the case that by moving to, county sort of led or county owned regions or teams, that actually there might be some shift of fan base over from the men's side. And that's obviously the plan with the double headers, CEC playing all double headers with the men. I think you'd like to think that, people will come early to watch the women's game and stay for the men's. But yeah, I think just trying to sort of build on the brands that teams have built up, and I guess for teams that are moving to certain different areas of regions, it's going to be difficult. But in theory, I do think this move through Project Darwin should, in the long run, increase like the fan base, and I think something that our DOC and has always done really well is not just him, but sort of wider staff group is like we've done a lot of engagement and reaching out to schools, and then we have those schools then turn up on game days and come and watch, and obviously it's not just one of them, it's like 120 school kids, but yeah, it's always great to see, and some of them then come back by themselves with their parents and whatever, so there's definitely a bit of a sort of market there to tap into, but yeah, just got to give them a reason to come.
And then finally, building on what you've mentioned there, if you could focus on one thing which excites you and one thing which worries you about Project Darwin, what would they be?
I think an exciting part of it has got to be sort of the increased investment and there being 15 pros at each team. I think, like I said previously, the pay as you play model is rapidly outdating itself, and having been a pay as you play player and now a pro, I think seeing both sides of it, and it's the game's moving past that, which is great, and it's everyone deserves. We're all doing the same thing at the end of the day, so everybody deserves a sort of not necessarily the same salary, but to at least be able to pursue it full time. So that's really exciting, and then I think a concern. I mean, I think lots of players are just concerned about sort of the relocation and whether they'd have to move and things like that. But it's all sort of up in the air, and I think any county that wins a tier 1 bid has obviously had to go and write up everything they're going to do and all of their plans and all the investment they're going to make. So you'd like to think that a bit of initial upheaval will result in a long-term gain for the players anyway. But I can imagine, relocation would be stressful.
I'd like to thank you again for coming on today. It's been a pleasure to talk to you about all things Vipers and regional cricket.
Thanks very much for having me.
Hello and welcome to the podcast, Sophia. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
First and foremost, a question which we ask every guest. What made you pick up a bat and ball for the first time?
I'd probably say, my grandpa was a big influence on me growing up, but I guess I had an older brother and I just thought if he can do it, then I can. But yeah, grandpa got me into it pretty quickly. I don't think there was any hesitation for me not to play cricket. So yeah.
It's quite a nice way to get into the game, I think, having family members who are interested.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, grandpa was a big coach when he was a bit younger. I mean, sadly can't really coach me anymore, but still a big part of my cricket at the minute. And after a game, it's always sort of analysis with grandpa on what happened. Can be good at times. Not if you get out quite cheaply, but yeah, he was a big part of it. And then obviously my brother, as I said, I think I started playing when I was about 5 at Newport, so it was very much like straight into it. Saw my brother play, wanted to do what he can do.
And then a little bit of a jump. When did you think I can actually do this as a career? There's a path for me here.
Yeah, I guess I knew straight away from the age of 8 that I wanted to play for England. So fairly as soon as I played for Wales, I was very much trying to achieve playing for England. But in terms of Storm stuff, I'd probably say, yeah, during that RDC period was when I probably got to know Storm a bit better and got to know that there was like a professional way forward.
For sure. I mean, I think also, obviously, with the new setup in 2020, it was probably quite late that you realised it is an option, because it wasn't an option for so many years for so many people.
Yeah, definitely. And I think when I look back, I didn't really ever aspire to play for Storm just because I didn't really know that much about it. It wasn't a big thing. It wasn't much professionalization of it. Whereas that's why I'm saying when I was little, it was always I was playing for England because it was England that was professional at that period of time, and that was obviously the end goal. So it's obviously nice now that young girls can aspire to Storm, which is really cool. But yeah, didn't really know too much about it until obviously later down the line.
I mean, it's been a whirlwind couple of years for you with an under-19 World Cup, Oval Invincibles in the 100 where you won with them, and then you signed your first pro contract. What has been your main learnings over that period? How have you developed as a player in yourself, confidence, etc.?
Well, there's been a lot of learnings. I think just playing against the very best in terms of the 100. I guess understanding that you can never just bowl the same ball over and over again. You've got to try and outsmart the batters, which is pretty hard when they're obviously the next level above. So I've definitely learned to sort of try and be a bit more savvy with the way I bowl. So trying to outsmart them, whether that's through a variation, through field settings, things like that. So that's a big learning with my bowling in terms of being exposed to those experiences, especially in England under-19s as well. I guess batting, it's more the confidence of it. I think you start off being can I perform at a professional level with it? And then once you do, it almost gives you that confidence that you can perform at that level. And it's quite nice to know that if you can do it at those levels, then you should be okay. And I guess it gives you that sort of bank of confidence to go out in a match and go, I've actually performed with the bat before. I've done this before. I can do it again. I feel like with my bowling, I obviously came into professional cricket as more of a bowler. So I don't know, I felt like I was always like fairly confident about that I could get myself out of trouble. But I guess with bowling, you get a few chances, don't you? But with batting, I was a little bit more uncertain just because I'm quite a technical player. I don't hit the ball that hard. So I was always nervous of like, was I going to be good enough for that professional step up and stuff like that. So I think a learning is definitely just trying to just be exposed to the environment as much as possible with the bat.
How do you personally keep yourself motivated when the season ends and there is no cricket to play? Because I know that's something which a lot of people struggle with.
Yeah, I definitely didn't struggle with it this year and neither last year. I mean, last year I was obviously planning to go away. This year I had quite a lot to work on. And I guess for me, I'm one that probably likes to prove quite a lot of people wrong. So I was straight into the nets. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't really have too much of a break. I probably had 2 weeks off in October. I was straight back bowling, straight back batting, just go for nets myself a lot of the time. And yeah, was straight in, just wanted to be better. I wanted to strive to play the next level up. So yeah, I'm still pushing to be better and be a key bowler for Storm, be a key batter for Storm, trying to get myself up the order at Storm. So there's loads of things that I wanted to really push on. So I think, yeah, I was straight into it and there was no real days where I felt not motivated, which was quite good, I guess. But yeah, there was a lot of things that I needed to work on, I guess, to prove that I'm good enough, I guess.
But you kind of touched on it there, but what are your personal goals for this season with Storm and then further than Storm?
Yeah, it's really difficult. I get a lot of like stats and figures and stuff, but yeah, look, I just try and take as many wickets as possible. I like to be very economical as well. So yeah, I like to not go for many runs, try and take as many wickets as possible for Storm and just be, I guess, a key part of the team at Storm. Look, I'm looking to get up the order and hopefully 50 over cricket and hopefully like put a stamp on my batting a bit more. I think people still see me as a bowler and I want to strive to be a batter in the future. So yeah, hopefully can be a batting all-rounder when I'm older. But yeah, so I'm pushing really hard with my batting. And yeah, I've changed my bowling a little bit, so it'll be interesting to see how it works out. It's a little bit worrying because I feel like you never know the what ifs, like what if I bowled the way I usually did. But yeah, I'm feeling good with my bowling. And yeah, I'm looking forward to just taking it into game. But yeah, I feel like so the key goal was take wickets and get runs really. But I guess Storm in general is like we want to be in finals and stuff like that. So it's how can I take wickets, get runs for the team, really.
Building on that, what has your winter training looked like as a side and how are you preparing for the season?
Yeah, so as October off, obviously I was training through October, partially. But don't worry, the head coach knows I like to have a net on my own. So but yeah, look, we started in November. That was basically fitness for a month, which is pretty grim. It's probably the worst month of the year. So yeah, just run, gym, basically. And then we had the odd like fun sports session where we'd like play football. The paddle tennis was quite a good one. That's up my street. So I enjoyed that one. But yeah, just random little activities like that. And then I started cricket a little bit earlier. Obviously had hopes to get in the 19 stuff and had a lot to work on. And I'm also personally not one to like not playing cricket. So I make sure I'm sort of in training a little bit earlier than other people are, because I don't want to waste the months when there's actually not that many months to work on my training. So I try and make the most of the winter period. But yeah, so around like December, most people are getting back into it. But yeah, and then straight into sort of non-bat v ball stuff. So your bowlers are bowling at stumps, your batters are facing slingers, bowling machines. Some people doing throwdowns, depending on like technical work, etc. And then sort of January, Feb. I mean, spinners were a little bit earlier for bat v ball. Seamers take their time a little bit more. But yeah, there was a much needed want for bat v ball, sort of, I think it's January, February time. So yeah, we've been doing a lot of bat v ball, a lot of scenarios, a lot of game-based things. And then fielding twice a week, normally once in like a football area place where it's sort of long grass, so it's quite realistic. But yeah, still a lot of gym, still a lot of running, but pretty full on. Yeah, and now obviously Storm have just popped off to Dubai, I think, or Abu Dhabi, not sure which one. So yeah, they'll be out there getting some practice on wickets, which is perfect for getting into the season.
But I guess it's an interesting approach from a technique point of view, which hopefully will pay off.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, yeah, look, a lot of teams have gone on tour a little bit earlier. But I kind of get our way of thinking of, well, if you go on tour early in the season, then you're coming back still into indoor cricket. Whereas if you go later, you're going from outdoor straight into matches. So yeah, from this then there's pre-season, which I'm pretty sure I miss in Sri Lanka, but obviously I'm outdoors playing cricket, so it's not like I'm missing anything too much because I'm actually doing the same stuff. But yeah, I kind of quite like the idea of having the indoor, outdoor straight away rather than going outdoors, then coming back indoors. Because indoor cricket is just not the same. Indoor schools are absolute roads most of the time, unless you get some mats down. Bowling in them's never really pleasant. So yeah, I quite like that we've done it a little bit differently to other teams.
I agree with the indoor stuff, especially as a spinner, because it doesn't replicate your conditions at all. Pace bowlers have it much easier in the winter, honestly.
Yeah, I mean they can get a bit of bounce as well in those indoor schools, but it's sometimes just like glass, it doesn't really turn, it just goes skids on. So yeah, we're lucky that some of our facilities have some nice mats, whether that's skiddier mats or slow mats, just do a little bit more and a little bit more true than just your average road indoor school.
For sure. I mean, building on that slightly from a logistical point of view, what does your setup at Storm currently look like? How is your access to facilities, access to coaches? Because I know it really varies. And where do you train? Because I know you're based at 3 grounds. So do you split it among the 3? Do you focus on one mainly?
This winter, so during our fitness block, we were at so Clifton Gym, and then like Gloss, and then Newport Cricket Club. They've got like the running track, things like that. Gym was all there, so we trained there. And then sort of after that November period, that's when we go to the proper cricket grounds, obviously. So Gloss, we've been at Gloss a lot mainly. So we're 4 days a week, and normally pre-January we were at Gloss 4 days a week. And then after January we were in at Glam a good once a week. Now it's twice a week normally. So yeah, we've been there the whole of the winter, basically, those 3 venues. And then in the summer it's quite dependent. We're at all of the grounds if we've got a match the day before nets. But if we're training, we're at Newport Cricket Club. Just got good facilities, like good ground, like it's good ground. There's a gym over the road, pool nearby for recovery. And yeah, there's great space just for outdoor net facilities on the square. So yeah, they've been really good last year. So we're there again. But yeah, I guess access to facilities wise, I mean, I don't know. People are different. People think that maybe we don't get great access to facilities, but I think this winter, I think we've had a pretty steady, like we know where we are. Thinking in that November period, it was either we were at Clifton or we were at Newport, and it was quite nice. And then now we're sort of Bristol and Cardiff, which works really nicely. And I guess it gives you again different that different sort of feel of place. So you've got Bristol, and then you've got Cardiff. It's got a few different mats, so you can put those down. So you can put the slow mats down there. Whereas Bristol's, there's not as many like mats, etc. And there's obviously not as many lanes. So that Cardiff will do a lot of like game-based scenarios and stuff. And then also in Cardiff, we go to Ocean Park, which is the football pitch, the indoor football pitch to do fielding, which is good. But yeah, so there's more game-based stuff, I'd say, at Cardiff, just because there's 7 net lanes. But yeah, I'd say a lot of the time we're at Gloss or Glam.
Now moving on to some predictions. First of all, who have you got up there within the Storm setup as being one of the top run scorers this year?
Good question. I mean, I always say Fran. I just think she always looks very good in the nets. I think if we haven't got Gibbo playing for us, I mean, Gibbo's probably up there as well, but I think Fran is one of those players that she's just so reliable. So I definitely say, yeah, Fran's definitely one of our players that can just churn out runs.
And then wickets, obviously you want to be up there yourself, but who else in your bowling setup are you backing to take a lot of wickets this season?
Yeah, I mean, I hope it's me, but like it depends on like England stuff. I'd always say Phyla is probably up there, especially in 50 over cricket if she's obviously playing. But yeah, I think spin plays a big part at Storm. Like Skelts is up there always. Chloe Skelton's always there with wickets wise. So I definitely say, yeah, her and probably Phyla.
Phyla is scary quick. And the scary thing is she's getting quicker.
The first time I like properly like faced her at Glamorgan, it gets through quite a lot. And first time I got in the way of one of the bouncers, it hit me on the old ribs. So yeah, that was pleasant. But now I'm, well, I wouldn't say I'm properly adjusted, but I did face her before she went to New Zealand. She didn't bowl me any short stuff, which was quite nice. She was trying to pitch it up a bit, but yeah, it's not pleasant getting in the way of the bouncers.
And then who do you think, is there anyone in the academy who you think is a potential breakthrough star for you guys this season?
I think we've definitely got two girls that were in the England under-19 setup. So we've got Katie Jones. But I personally think Lola Harris, if she gets a go, leg spinner. I think she's got a lot of good years ahead of her. Yeah, lovely girl, and I just think she's a great bowler. I've come up through the RDC with her, so she was another one that was sort of in the RDC at quite a young age. So I've known her since she was quite young. So it's nice just to see her keep pushing on, and to see her getting the 19 stuff was really special, and I think she really deserved it. And she's been in and around the training a little bit, which has been nice. She's gone away on tour with Storm, which is nice, and hopefully yeah, she warrants it, I think.
From a senior point of view, who do you, obviously yourself again, you want yourself to be up there, but apart from yourself, who do you think is a potential player of the season? That's a big one. You can name a couple if you want. It's easier.
I feel like I could go with Fran again. it normally always goes to a batter player of the season, let's be honest.
Yeah.
It's this world that we live in. So yeah. I think it was Fran I don't know if it was Fran last year, but I'm not sure. I can't
it
really
was.
But I definitely think Fran could get it, and like her fielding wise as well. Although she doesn't provide anything with the ball, I think she's a gun fielder. And yeah, I've seen her in the nets batting. She does look quality. So I'd definitely say Fran is always up there in the running. And to be fair, Luffy. I mean, I haven't seen Luffy because she's been away, but she's always fairly consistent with her run scoring. So I'll give it to a batter, I think.
I mean, I genuinely don't think I can name a team where I didn't go to a batter.
It never does.
think
Like play of the match.
It always goes to a batter.
Always goes to a batter.
And then the big question, which I think a lot of people are asking, is can Vipers' dominance be beaten? I personally think it can be, but do you think there will be different names on both of the trophies or one of the trophies this season?
Definitely, yeah. I think I don't think anyone is behind them. I think we're all on equal playing field. I just think, as I said before, like they can get over the line quite well, but I think hopefully, feel like we've developed quite well over the winter and trying to be a little bit better of what the game needs from us in the period of time. We've obviously got quite a young side. So yeah, I think 100% they can be beaten, and I think it does come down to like sometimes luck. Sort of when it's that 50-50, it could go either way. And it comes down to who's going to take the game on. So yeah, I'm hoping that we've developed as cricketers, but people off the pitch as well, and hopefully our cricketing brain has grown, and we can sort of stand up in those big moments when it really matters. But I definitely think, yeah, I don't think anyone's ever been that far away. So I just think I mean, I'd like to say Storm, but I think anyone can beat them.
And then looking at outside of Storm, who are another team which you'll be keeping an eye on as a potential dark horse in the tournaments, who you think maybe won't be on people's radars but could go further than expected?
Well, I feel like everyone always says Sunnies is always like one of they always think it's a dark horse, and they've got some flipping good players. Lucky enough to play with some of them at Oval, and at 19s. I'm rooming with one of the girls from Sunnies in the 19s tour to Sri Lanka. So I'm well aware of like the girls' talents that they've got. But yeah, look, they've obviously got a few girls in the A tour to New Zealand at the minute. But yeah, I think I always, especially with Danae in the T20s now as well, they've got quality T20 sign in there. But I think again, it comes down to if those players are stepping up at the right time. I do think that they are definitely a dark horse, and I feel like everyone always thinks that Storm and Sunnies are sort of the dark horses. So I definitely say apart from us, yes, probably Sunnies.
And then who are some players who you'll be keeping an eye out for at the other regions who you think are going to have a great season?
That's difficult.
You can have a think.
Yeah, yeah. I try not to focus too much on other people now. I used to be like that. I used to worry about everyone else, but there's always a few players I definitely always think they'll have a good season. Not that I feel like I've never feel like they don't not have a good season. Again, it comes down to those consistent players. Like I definitely say Lauren Winfield Hill is always a threat for Diamonds, and she's so consistent. So I'm definitely probably aware that she'll have another good season as always. But yeah, there's a few girls at the 19s that could really step up this year in their regions. A few of them play regularly for them, so it'll be interesting to see how they go. But yeah, like off the top of my head, probably couldn't name I could name a few of them, but yeah, there's definitely a few under-19s girls that definitely could really put their mark on professional cricket.
Looking at the game in general, what do you think? This is another big one. What do you think could be done to help replicate the crowds which you're getting in for the 100?
Look, I think the one county thing will help with that. If we think about, like, if you're a member of the county, then you're going to be a member of the women's county team as well. So more people are going to come and watch. They've got membership, they've bought it. I think Storm are very much quite separate of the counties at the minute. I don't think we're, because with 3, it's very much like no one really knows. Personally, I don't really think no one knows about Storm that much. When I say I play for Western Storm, a lot of people ask me what that is, and I have to say it's 3 counties. So I definitely feel like the one county thing will help, because people will know Gloucestershire, Glamorgan, Somerset. They all know those counties. So I think that will definitely help. But it's a big one. I think marketing as well. I think marketing's pretty sparse in the women's game. Social media is pretty sparse in the women's game. So I just think things like that. But yeah, it's very difficult, and I'll be honest, I find it pretty hard because I enjoy playing in front of large crowds on the big stage. So when you go out to your Storm game and there's 100 people, it's pretty hard to really get up for it at times when it's a freezing cold day and there's not many people there. So it's a big thing for me of like, how can I be up for a game like that? So yeah, I wish there was a few more people in the crowds.
I think that's one of the things which is very exciting about Project Darwin. I mean, it's such a pain trying to explain to people the women's regional system because they just don't get it. And I think it's also the fact that different teams have different amount of counties, and some of them don't geographically make sense as well. Like the fact that Sunrisers have Northampton, really random. So I feel like the Project Darwin stuff is a really positive move in that sense, for sure.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's a right pain unless someone knows about the women's game, they don't really know what it is, and especially to a non-cricket person, they haven't got a clue as to what Western Storm are. And I think like comes down to, like, you look at football clubs, it's the men's and women's teams, so they know that it's Chelsea men's, it's Chelsea women, like they know that it's not like it's like a mix of 2 teams. So yeah, I think that's the exciting part about Darwin.
I'd like to thank you again, Sophia, for coming on today. It's been a pleasure to chat with you about all things Western Storm and yourself.
No, thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Welcome to the Rosa Talks Ball podcast with me, Rosa Simpkin.
They said nobody cared about women's rugby, but guess what? We out here. We out here, fam. We're going nowhere.
And straight down the ground, that is divine from Cross. Kate Cross on so many occasions has made a name for herself with the ball for England. Today at Bristol, it's with the bat.
Oh, and the tune is through here, and the tune for England!